Hey all, welcome to the second week of my weekly GameDev Log. This week, more progress on the 2D Ninja color match cooking game. Really need to come up with a name for that because that's a bit wordy. Anyway, let's dive right in. So to begin with, I started working on the color match score mechanism. Currently on the endgame screen, there was a way to visually see which color you had and what the target color was, but there was no code behind it or way to visually show that how close you were in terms of points, like giving a score for how close you were to the target color. So I started implementing this. I started off initially by working on the UI for it, and then moved on to adding the code to hook up the backend so that it would update the score at the end of the level. The way I implemented this was I had an attenuation value and attenuation score. So essentially, from the maximum score that you could get for the perfect color match, I would make it so you could have variables to choose how each step is further away from that color, so 0.2 away or 0.4 away, and then how much score you would lose for that drop off. This allowed me to tweak it for each of the levels. After adding the code to do this score calculation, I went onto the levels select screen and changed all the levels so that each level had a different level of difficulty in terms of how closely you had to match the color with these two new attenuation values. I decided I wanted to switch it up a bit and do a little bit more artwork. I've really been wanting to add a few more ingredients to the game. Currently we just got that tomato from the first weekly GameDev Log. And decided to go with a potato for this one. So yeah, here's me working through creating the potato.
But it's not a thing about making it accurate. It's not about getting all the errors out. It's about getting it to feel right.
The potato didn't work out exactly how I'd hoped. I think my artwork still needs a little bit of improvement, but I was fairly happy with the outcome. To finish off the first day, I just wanted to import the potato artwork into Unity and just see what it looked like next to the tomato in the level. So straight into day 2, I decided to implement the potato into the game properly using the ingredient spawner. So I worked on adding some randomization to decide whether you're going to throw up a tomato or a potato. I realized at this point that there wasn't actually a pass-fail criteria for each of the levels. We've got the score for the color match, we've got the score for the cutting the ingredients, but there was no way to know whether you actually passed or failed for that level. So I decided to implement a basic 3-star system with different score requirements for each star. It was whilst testing out this new star functionality that I actually found my first bug in the game. And let's go level 4, it's going to be harder. Minus 1,272. Okay, there's a bug. Wow. So just to quickly implement a fix for this, where basically you clamp the score to 0 so you can never go to a negative number. And as you can see now, even with a wildly inaccurate color match, you still only get a score of 0. I decided I want to take a break from development work and work on some artwork, spruce up the level a little bit. I started off looking at the table that the cooking pot's on and try and make that look a little bit more realistic. I then moved on to work on the restaurant floor, trying to get that black and white checkered look.
There's an error that feels good, then you leave it in. You know, you want those.
I worked a little bit on the chair booth, adding some wooden texture to the casing to try and make it a little bit more lifelike. I finished off the chair booth with some shadows around the edges where it would meet the floor.
It's not a thing about making it accurate. It's a thing about making it feel right.
I decided I wasn't happy with how the restaurant floor looked, so I decided to give that another go using a much larger tile set. After doing that, I then did some final tweaks to the background image and then imported into Unity and saw what it looked like in the level. The third day was an absolute failure. It was my first attempt to try and get the touch input working using raycast from a touch gesture into the scene, and for the life of me I spent about 2-3 hours just looking at different forums and trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. At the end of it, I just had to write off. Sometimes you got to do that. I don't know if I was tired or what, but I had a little rest, came back to it the next day, and everything was a lot better.
It's about getting it to feel right.
Okay, on the last day, I was eager to fix this bug. The raycasting issue I had the day before, I'd done a little bit of reading around it, and I had some ideas how I might approach it. First thing I tried was using a raycast 2D rather than the raycast that I was currently using, and it worked first time, so I was super happy with that. So I start, and yes, it is of course working. Oh my days, finally we got it working. Oh, it's been so stressful. Oh, I'm buzzing. Right, sweet. Once I got the cooking working using the touch input, I then moved on to the blade. This was slightly different because I had to do some functionality where we would store the cook touch, as we wouldn't want to include that in the blade ones. So we had to keep a reference to that, and then a reference to the blade one as well, because I also didn't want to be able to have like multiple touches, creating separate blades and things like that. So it's quite complicated to get this bit working, but I was pretty happy with the result.
Then you leave it in. You know, you want those.
I then moved on to a new task. I wanted to add a visual indicator of the scores that were being retrieved when you slice an ingredient. I wanted the score for that type of ingredient to show up on the screen and then fade away. So I started implementing this.
But it's not a thing about making it accurate. It's a thing about making it feel right.
Overall, I'm really happy with progress this week. I had a little hiccup on one of those days, but you know, progress is not linear. So the fact that I came back the next day and then resolved the issue and managed to make even more progress, I'm really happy with. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you either on my Twitch channel or on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Bye.